Yeah, so welcome everyone to our fourth meeting of the Adventure and Nature Based Therapy Study Group. I'm really excited to see some new faces and then some familiar ones. Um, my name is Tanya, and I'm a psychologist, and I've been trying to learn more about adventure therapy since the last 5 years, and still so much more to learn. And really excited to be able to facilitate this space just for us to learn together and from each other. And today I'm really, really excited that we get to have Natalia with us. Natalia is an adventure therapist based in Spain. And we met in Australia in 2018. And I think our first interaction was at the cave, Natalia, when we were a
Oh, yeah.
part of this workshop before the conference where we were talking about international adventure therapy training and what it would entail. And so we spent like 3 days in this cave, beautiful cave in the Blue Mountains. And so that was my first introduction to Natalia. And I really love her energy. It's infectious, and it's been really fun to just be in touch with you since then and keep learning more about your work. So welcome.
Thank you.
And yeah, so she's just going to share. I'd love for you to start by introducing yourself. And the flow of this session is going to be that Natalia is going to share about herself, her journey, and show us some of her work. And then we're going to end with like an interactive, just like a Q&A and a discussion. So, you can feel free to leave questions as they come up in the chat in case you're afraid you might forget them. Just feel free to type them out in the chat and we'll get to them towards the end. Yeah. So, welcome, Natalia. And please tell us more about yourself.
Sure. Okay, thank you very much. It's really like an honor, and I'm really excited and jealous as well to see the group that you guys have going on here. And I don't know, it's really inspiring to see you all meeting monthly to learn together and to share. I'm a psychologist, I'm a family therapist. And a little bit, just to tell you a little bit about me, I've been always involved in scouts, in outdoor nature and youth non-formal education. And I got the opportunity through a scholarship to study mental health and counseling masters in US. And there it was where I heard for the first time the magic words for me, which were like adventure therapy and wilderness therapy. So I was like, hey, what's that? No? Like wilderness therapy, I want to do that. Like it sounds like wilderness and therapy. Why didn't I think of this before? Because this is really like unknown in Spain, not so much lately, but it was at the time and definitely was for me. So I researched and I saw like all these wilderness therapy programs in US, and I got the chance to work in two of them in Utah and Arizona. So I work as a field guide, meaning that I was kind of like a psychoeducator working with groups in the desert of Utah, a of groups of kids with substance abuse, behavioral issues, emotional difficulties, and so on. Really, in U.S. wilderness therapy, I don't know if you know, but it's addressed for high risk uh, people or like at risk people, and it was really like a transforming experience. I was like, wow, this is unique, right? Like living 8 days with a group in the desert 24/7. It was really intense. And then I got the chance to work in another program in Arizona as a therapist. So I could see the other side of the coin, like the wilderness therapist role, and I was doing the individual therapy and also the family therapy, which I really enjoy. So I will be at the office, but I will go to the field every week to meet with the groups and with the individuals. So I said, okay, this is too good to not have it in Spain. Like, come on, it's impossible. How can we not have this? And yeah, so that's why I decided a little bit to come back to Spain. And I started researching, and I contacted another colleague, Alex Rose, who decided to, a few years before me, he started researching about adventure therapy and going to conferences. And I think you, Tanya, actually met him before. I don't know if in Denver or
Yeah,
yeah,
in Denver. Yeah.
Denver. I was I was really upset because I was near Denver the year that it was, but I was so in the field of wilderness therapy that I didn't know that there was like an international conference next to me. But that's right, I'm here now and I'm in the path now that I want to be. So yeah, we created an organization, and we started an organization that is called Experientia, with the aim of introducing adventure therapy and wilderness therapy in Spain. That's the main goal that we had, and well, I think yeah, we can be proud to say that we did it. And now adventure therapy, it's a little bit, it's a reality, a tiny reality, but it is. And now more and more professionals start to know this approach. We still need a long way to go. We're still babies in the field, and there's a lot of uncertainties, a lot of legal issues that we don't know where to fall because there's no regulations. But we walk the path. So here we are. So yeah, I can tell you a little bit about the organization if you want, and the work that we do.
Yeah.
Tanya, how do you do the questions afterwards? Or
Yeah, we can do the questions at the end.
perfect,
And yeah, and you can go ahead and share more about your organization and let me know when you'd also like me to share the video. Yeah.
perfect. I have a little presentation, not a big thing, but we recently changed our image, so it's nice to show it. So, so Experientia. A little bit of the history. We started this organization when through Erasmus Plus, like a European program that gave us funds to create a partnership between 7 countries in Europe to start writing like best practices and starting to create a network in Europe, because we noticed there was a lot of professionals all through Europe. There was the international network, but we were not connected. So the aim of this partnership was to create a network and also to organize the first adventure therapy, well, the first gathering for adventure therapy in Europe, which we did it in Spain in 2017, and now we do it every 2 years. And even though it's European, you guys are more than welcome to join. Next one will be in Norway, which we will do it together with the International Adventure Therapy Conference. So this was like a really big boost for us to start like creating the organization and also the network to support people. So for the first years of the organization, we've been very focused on the international scheme. Like we've been, and we still are, no? Like drinking, drinking out of like our colleagues and other organizations in Europe, so we can bring it back, bring the knowledge and experience back to Spain. So, okay. Hola. Okay. So experience is not what happens to you, but what you do with what happens to you. By now, you probably have heard of this, and I really like to start our presentations because I really think like Experientia is born out of this, out of this sentence, right? Is what we are creating is for other people to create their own experience. Okay, so we are a group of professionals that work as psychologists, occupational therapists, social educators, psychiatry, and so on. And we work as a multidisciplinary team. And now we are trying to bring different sources of knowledge in the interventions when we design it. We started as a volunteer organization, like everyone was volunteer and putting a lot of energy and effort into the work that we do, and definitely that was the key to be able to really set off and start doing the work that we do. And we've been working towards professionalizing, and now we are 7 people working at the organization, and we also have some volunteers that help us in other areas. And we've been learning internationally, actually, in US, in Australia, in other countries in Europe, where we could have some formal training or professional experiences, so we could start creating these programs in Spain. And we've been working a lot in trying to getting accreditations or awards, right, to be able to provide with some support, because there is a lot of, in Spain there's a lot of skepticism sometimes. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, this makes sense, yeah, and people, nature, experience, it makes sense. But a lot of people also tend to go to nature, hippies, informal, non-scientific. So we've been working a lot in trying to get the backup of organizations like the Psychology Council, the National Psychology Council, and other organizations that can back up a little bit that the work that we're doing. It makes sense. We always say we're not making anything up. It's everything done. We are only adapting it to our circumstances and our context. So we have 3 areas of work in Experientia. One is the therapeutic programs. So we design adventure therapy programs for mostly organizations like hospitals, foundations, associations, schools that work with a specific group of population. We also provide training and supervision for professionals who want to start their practice and who want to develop and create adventure therapy programs. And we also have a little branch of providing psychotherapy one-to-one, more like nature-based psychotherapy. And we have worked with a lot of different populations that I will explain later. And we usually do a partnership. So we find like a hospital, a school, association of kids with autism, and we create a partnership where we work together along their team, and we design the program to do it for the organization, for the kids or the population that they usually work with them. So it's a system a little bit different. So we don't have open enrollment programs where people sign up and come. We don't usually have those because it's still really hard for us to get the people to enroll, because it's still very unknown and people don't trust what they don't know. But we've been able to do a lot of partnerships with organizations and to provide these tailor-made programs, which is really cool and interesting, I think, because it gave us the opportunity to learn a lot from different organizations and different populations. So as I was saying, we did tailor-made. We could do like a prevention or more like intervention programs. It could be like a full program of adventure therapy, or it could be integrated with other treatment that they are receiving. And it could be outpatient or residential, or like a mix of them. And we usually do the sessions could be like 2-hour sessions, or half a day or 1 day, or then we can go away for a weekend or for 5, 7, 10 days. That's usually what we do. So we play with the pieces of the puzzle, and depending on the organization, the needs of the group, the resources, we create a program. And some of the courses that we have, well, the main one that we're I'll explain some of them to give you some examples. The main one, it's called Exploring, kind of. I'm gonna do an attempt of translation. Exploring. And it's aimed for kids with youth at risk. There are some sort of side schools for kids who are falling out of the educational system and due behavioral or emotional problems, or because they don't go to class or they get kicked out of school all the time. So they created these units where they adapted the curriculum. So we are doing an adventure-based program to work on emotional development through the whole year. So this is one subject that they have, like the same way they have maths or English, they have explora, no? Experiencia. And we do weekly sessions, and we alternate. One week we do like a full session, the whole day from 9 to 2, which is their class schedule, and the following week we do one or 2 hours just to kind of like wrap up the experience, how was it, and prepare for the next session. And we go out and do several activities like climbing or kayaking, biking, hiking, any kind of experiential or adventure activity or nature based that can help us to work with this emotional education part. Another program that we've done for several years is a residential program for kids with Asperger's, which at the beginning was a challenge to think about, like, oh, how are we going to do adventure with kids with Asperger's if they like things to be planned and then the structure, and adventure is actually not knowing what's going to happen. So we adapted the methodology in a way that it was really good for participants to be able to adapt and to connect with the program. And instead of doing an expedition and going outside, we found like a little area, like a house or like a rural house, a farmhouse or something like that, where they could stay there, have their place, and we will do different adventure activities and going for a night out and so on. So we find a way to adapt the methodology. And we did it with youngsters, so from 13 to 17, and then with young adults from 17 to 25. Another program we did last year, for example, it's with kids with foster care centers, and it was like a 7-day expedition. This was like a backpacking expedition, and we always work with small groups. Usually, the average number is 10, and usually the ratio is like 3 staff for 10 people. So we try to do like a high ratio, which makes everything complicated in terms of resources, but we think it's most appropriate, especially for some of the kids that we work with. Another program, for example, with adults, it's at the hospital. It's in a hospital setting, and we've done it with borderline personality disorder, and also with people with severe mental health issues like psychosis. And we've done it like as an outpatient program during 4 months. So, for example, every week we've been doing adventure therapy sessions at the hospital setting. There's like a big park or nearby in different areas. And this was for a day hospital and also for the rehabilitation center. We actually wrote a paper about it in the borderline personality disorders. If anyone's interested, feel free to ask, and I will share the information about the paper. And another program that we've done, with adults, it's reintegration through sport, which is a partnership that we've done as well through the European funds in Greece, with adults in substance abuse rehabilitation that they belong to therapeutic communities. So we designed like a pilot program to implement adventure therapy in these settings. And finally, another example is the trainings that we do. We try to do our trainings experientially as much as possible. We think that's how we learn. So we do a 6-day backpacking expedition to provide an opportunity to learn about wilderness therapy. And Tanya, if you want, you can play the video of the training, so you can get a little sense of what we do.
Yeah, just a minute. Yeah, just let me know if you can hear it.
No. Yes.
Experiencia is an organization that is introducing adventure therapy and wilderness therapy in Spain. The goal of this training is to provide an opportunity to experience the benefits of adventure therapy and more specifically of wilderness therapy from an experiential approach, so participants can actually understand and feel how it works on their own skin.
I started to be an outdoor instructor about 7 years ago, and I teach sailing, kayaking, climbing, and from that could see that there's a lot of therapeutic benefits of the outdoors.
Well, I work with youth at risk in my job in a number of different contexts, including sometimes in an outdoors and wilderness context, and I needed further guidance in order to inform my work, structure it better, plan it better.
I choose this week to do because it's something different in the traditional therapy that you can offer.
I work with youth aged 12 to 23 years old. We're working on topics like participation in the society. I think experiential learning or wilderness therapy can be a part of that as well. So I try to integrate that into my work back at home.
So I've learned a lot about how to facilitate others' learning in the outdoors, mixing the hard skills like living outside and cooking outside with also taking care of emotional needs.
I really wanted to know how you really apply it and the theory behind adventure and wilderness therapy, because I wanted to know why it really helps me, and I really saw the potential of being outside and being in the wilderness.
As a professional, I think it's always good to take yourself out of the environment that you've been working in for a number of years, and I think this presented a really good opportunity to look at the work that other people are doing in other European countries. So I think the real value is in the mixed learning and mixing with other professionals.
Based on our own experience in USA and Europe, we design and implement adventure therapy programs for hospitals, daycare centers, or organizations that work with youth at risk or within the mental health field. We kind of divided the training in different parts. So the first part is focused on the experience, and we want participants to have the same experience that they could provide to clients or people that they are working with. For the second part, we put the focus on the processing to understand the impact that that experience have on themselves and the learning that they had by doing certain things. For the last part, we go a little bit more into the meta-analysis, and we process and we talk about how can we apply what we have lived and learned into our work with our clients.
The challenges.
Maybe one challenge for me was that I couldn't drink coffee.
I think every time I try and cook dinner it's pretty hysterical as well. I think I've knocked over every dinner and dropped every vegetable into the dirt since I've started.
Practical challenges with the living outdoors, as well as personal challenges, because we're spending a lot of time reflecting and bringing up subjects we might not usually spend time thinking about. So things, I guess, that we take for granted at home, even letting go of your watch and time and your phone.
The title I would give to the week is intense. You are constantly together with the group, you have a lot of conversations, and of course the walking and the cooking and being constant in nature.
I think learning from the experts. You know, the youth field and the outdoors field is full of people with lots of very relevant experience, but I think not in the same focused way that the Experiencia team have in wilderness therapy itself.
Living outside the box, because you're also thinking outside the box, but we're living outside the box.
Slowly getting there.
I would say my comfort zone.
I would say it is life-changing. I know that's a cliche, but it's definitely one in a million.
That's a little bit of like the experience that we provide in the training that we do, which is an example of how we also do our programs. So participants can actually live like participants will live the program, right? And yeah, just to wrap up a little bit, to give you some examples, because in this video you can see like the context is more like the outback, and it's more like wilderness and a little bit more remote areas, even though in Spain we don't have a lot of wilderness itself, right? Wilderness understood as a land that is totally untouched by humans. You can always run into someone in Spain because we don't have that many wild areas unless there's like national parks where maybe the restrictions are really high, so you cannot camp there or something. So sometimes we try to use that setting, but sometimes it's not possible. So we just use the park near the city, as you can see in the picture, right? Like, okay, we can do a meditation, we can hear the birds, there's like still the city in the background, but you can, that's Barcelona, for example, but you can still find areas within the city, parks that are more like park cities or like woods that are more isolated, more like, yeah, more that gives you more the feeling of like nature, right, and isolation. And sometimes we use the sea as to do activities as we are by the sea, or also like the indoor climbing room, like gym, right? That's also like another option where we can, well, create the context. The important thing for us is to be able to provide a different context with a different opportunity for participants to develop themselves. And yeah, I think that's it for now. You can find our contact information and social media if you wanna follow us on Instagram or Facebook or wherever, or just shoot us an email whenever you want. We're super happy to talk about anything that you guys might wanna talk or any questions. And yeah, and I'll be super happy to continue now with you guys and yeah, hear your thoughts and questions.
Thank you, Natalia. I'm just so amazed at the range and the diversity in your programs and all of the different populations you work with. So yeah, that's amazing. And I have a lot of questions, but I'd also like to just see if there's anyone else who has any questions who'd like to start, and I'll also jump in. How old is your organization, Natalia?
It's 5.5 years.
Okay.
We officially, like the main work we started to do was in September in 2015. It started a little bit before the organization, and of course the idea, Alex was like working on the idea for a long time before, but that was kind of like the setup, which was actually the day after the first big meeting to start kickoff meeting for Experiencia. There was one before, I think it was in springtime in 2015, But the main event, it was like a weekend outside to start developing the idea. And it was the day after I arrived from US, which I wanted to be like a smooth closure there, and you know, take my time. And then I heard, okay, well, the meeting is gonna be this week, and it was like, I'm finishing that week, and yeah, I managed to to arrive to pack. I remember arriving in Barcelona, opening my suitcase, putting things in my backpack, and going right straight from the airport.
So you had all your work cut out for you already. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing how much you all have done in just 5 years. Hmm.
I would love to ask, when you started, like, how did you, you know, you have so many things you offer now. Did you start with one that you kept doing, or did you introduce all of them at once, or like, how did you roll them out, your different programs?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. I don't know if I have a good answer. I have what we did. We tend to, I guess, because we didn't know where to start, I guess we started like trying everything, which maybe now looking back, now that you ask, could be like, oh, maybe we should have just choose something and go for it. But we were kind of like knocking in a lot of doors, trying to pull the strings that we had, contacting people that we know. So I remember the first program that we did was completely volunteer. It was it was a climbing-based program for people with people with mental health disorder, and it was with a colleague of us who already worked with them in the past. So it was more like, okay, I already work in this rehabilitation center, and I want to implement the program, and everything was for free and all the efforts, and that was the first actually adventure therapy program that we did in Spain. And I remember we sat down and designed an intervention that it was like 7 days, no, 15 days, I think, more like wilderness therapy, 15 days out with kids, with a group of kids. And it was really beautiful, the process. And then it was like a slap in the face with reality. It was like super expensive. We didn't know how to reach people. It was not possible for us to really gather participants, right? And it was like, okay, maybe this is not the way. And then we had the opportunity through an organization that they say, hey, we would like to organize summer camps, but we don't want to do summer camps for our kids with Asperger's. We would like to do something more therapeutic. What can you offer? And then we adapted and designed something for them. And that was where we saw, okay, maybe organizations are the key. So we started checking organizations and what could we offer. We tended to do like to go big. That's how we were and how we are thinking big. But then we realized that smaller things also work out well. And it's the way to start proving people and connecting with organization and with participants, like, hey, this is a chance for you to try, to see how it goes, and then to make a bigger commitment. Thank you. Yes, so the question is if there is there a social stigma to the therapy, and how do we deal with it? Yes, totally. In Spain, we're improving a little bit slowly. If you're optimistic, you will say a lot, but it's still really slow. And actually, with the COVID situation, with the whole pandemic situation, it's a clear sign of how the stigma is still there. Like recently, there was like in the newspaper, there was a news that said in the fourth wave, psychologists will be key in the development, for the population. It's like, come on, we've been like a whole year of pandemic, and now maybe psychologists start to to be like a crucial element in this picture. So that's really representative. And even with for the first months of the pandemic, when it was really like a crisis situation and a health problem, a lot of people from students from nursery and other and doctors were hired without finishing the degree, and the government asked psychologists to please volunteer to help people. So like, come on, like this is, so that's how it's still, the value still is really low and the stigma is really high. Like people are still thinking, you know, that psychology is for crazy people. So that stigma, along with the stigma of going to nature, is for hippies and we're going to go and hack a tree. Yeah, that's something that we've been fighting with. So that's why we try to support a lot with backing up with a lot of scientific research and the methodology and so on.
And I also had a question about, like you said something about like regulations, and I'm just curious about like in Spain, is like within the outdoors and then also within the mental health field, is like licensing and regulations something that's given a lot of importance to, and is that something that's enforced or not so much?
So for the licensing, so there's no clear regulations. There are regulations in the field of therapy, and there are regulations in the field of mountain sports, but there is not like a clear path. So whenever we design a program, we try to be cover every area. Like, okay, if we're going with youngsters that are underage, we try to be covered by the non-formal education, like a summer camp. If we're going with adults, we're doing this. If we're doing a program that is more like psychotherapy program, the professionals have to have the credentials for psychotherapy. If it's more like social or psychoeducational, we have to, you know, have the accreditations for providing therapeutic support. So we are kind of like making the puzzles and hiring like private insurance companies to cover everything that we do. So it's really complicated. Okay, how did you begin your journey of learning about adventure therapy and wilderness therapy? And what are some key experiences as well as trainings that have influenced my practices? Okay, so I began, as I was saying at the beginning, I began by chance, by like a colleague of mine said we were doing a case staffing, talking about the case. And my colleague, who was a PhD in psychology, he said something like, yeah, when I was in wilderness therapy, I was like, wait, what is that? And that's how I learned. I just jump in directly to work in this context. And then when I came to Europe, I realized, okay, I really need to, like what I learned, it was very the US model, which is very rich in a lot of parts, but also it's a big industry there. So the level of, like, it was not easy to adapt that into Spain. So I also got some training in different parts, and like, for example, going to experiential trainings, mostly, sorry for the noise, going mostly to trainings that were based in experiential learning, because in Europe there was not a lot of training in adventure therapy. So what I've noticed is that in this field, I have to train a lot in therapeutic skills, like group dynamics and psychotherapy, which I did already in my career, and also had to learn a lot of other skills that are like outdoors related or more like experiential methodologies, and then I had to integrate them by experience and reading and sharing with other professionals and so on. So there was a big part of my learning that was experiential, and let's do it, and let's talk, and let's have supervision sessions with other professionals and so on. What have been some of the big thoughts in Omi?
Yeah, I think it's a typo.
Yeah, in
Maybe you
You can just read the next sentence. Sorry, I didn't know.
What have been some shifts in your thinking after 5 years? Wow. Well, as I'm talking about it, I realized the shift. Well, I felt a transformation in my mindset as well, because as I said, I learned everything in US, and they have a very particular style. And I've noticed that I've been shaping it more into, okay, this is what we do now in adventure therapy. So for that, part of the process was learning what it's done in Europe and also in Australia, because they have a different approach as well. And I got to learn how to integrate it and how to adapt it to Spain, and realizing, okay, this original view of doing like a 15 3-week wilderness therapy program in Spain right now is not the time. It might not work. It's not the time, or maybe we don't have the resources. That's another thing that I have to learn on the way, sometimes the hard way, because you need to be able to design and provide something according to your resources and your level as well of knowledge and experience. So for some areas, for some population, we're like, okay, yes, we can provide this. But for others that might require a high risk or high maintenance or other competencies or knowledge, like, oh, maybe we cannot reach here. And we actually today had this conversation with the team, because we're providing a program this summer for kids who are using technology a lot. And we didn't want to be seen as, we're not going to do like a rehabilitation treatment program for technology addiction, because we are not experts in addiction. We are experts in adventure therapy. So we are going to provide a program, an adventure therapy program, that will help people who is struggling with addiction or with abuse, but that are not in treatment, and that they are not diagnosed with substance abuse disorder, for example, well, technology abuse disorder, right? So learning to adapt what you know and your skills and your resources to what you are providing. That's one of the main learnings that I have in these 5 years. What are some ways in which you had to adapt the adventure therapy model for Spain? Yeah, a little bit of what I was saying. Going smaller, and also, for example, little things like when we talk about spirituality, there's a lot of stigma as well. So we try to not present it as a big thing, even though we're gonna work with it. We try to not present it as a big thing, because then if it's therapy plus nature plus spirituality, that's too hippie, all right? And our tendency is to try to be very serious and professionals and science-based. We're trying to go to the other side. And I think with the years, we will get to the middle. But now it's like we're trying to overcompensate, to try to prove that what we are doing has basis and it works, and it's been proven, right? Which organization in India offers courses for wilderness therapy or adventure therapy? I'll pass the question to Tanya.
None yet that are offering courses exclusively, that are sort of adventure therapy focused. So, for example, I've had to sort of pick up these pieces a little bit like Natalia from different spaces. And we can talk more about that at some point. So you can reach out to me if you'd like to know more specifically about a particular component. But no, right now we don't have a program that is focused exclusively on adventure therapy, but hopefully someday, and hopefully someday, Natalia, you can come and do a training with us here. That would be the dream.
I would love to. Yeah, and someone is asking if you have to be a psychologist to attend to the courses. we provide adventure therapy training or wilderness therapy for professionals in the, we always say, mental health or intervention field. So this means that you can be a youth worker, you can be a psychologist, occupational therapist, educational, but from the branch of like the helping part of the profession. Someone is asking, Rudy, I say the names, but I don't know if I'm pronouncing it well. Curious to know how the programs for people with Asperger's look like. Most therapy options still follow very conventional routes, and what will be some of the core ideas behind the programs. This program, it was like the first residential program that we did, so it was really exciting and really an adventure, because really adventure and Asperger's were not tying up together naturally. So what we did was adapting a lot, slowing down the rhythms a lot. We planned 2 days, 2 nights out camping and like this big hike. And the first day we were like, okay, we are not doing this. And we totally changed the route. We did like a little hike of like an hour and a half, and we camped nearby the farm, the housing where we were staying. And that was already like way out of their comfort zone. For this program, for example, we tend to do this. We brought the psychologist and the social educator of the kids with the group. So we were the experts in adventure therapy. We had the experts in the population. So they were experts in Asperger's and they knew the kids, the participants. And for some adventure activities, we had the professionals with the competencies and the knowledge for the technical knowledge. So it's like these 3 pillars that we have when we create the team. So it was a really interesting experience where we learned to slow down a lot. We told them what was the structure of the day. So we start with a check-in, with an assembly, whatever, the breakfast, the lunchtime, and they knew there was like blocks of activities, but they were blank. So we were to tell them like few hours before or at the beginning of the day. At the beginning of in the morning, we will tell them what we do in the morning. And after lunch, we tell them what we do later. And we noticed that that was very important because we had to change all the time the program, all the time, because you need to read the group and see really where they are at and what they need. So it doesn't matter if the plan was to do kayak, if they are not, in the mood, or if you see the group is having other issues, you have to address it. And that's the phenomenological approach of adventure therapy, and that's the methodology where you have to improvise a lot, which is, I love it, but it's exhausting as well.
So can I ask, Natalia,
yeah.
can I ask, sorry, what did you hope that these kids would take away from the residential stay? Or what is it that you hope that they would get from this when they went back to where they came from?
We work on individual responsibility and skills for daily skills, because these kids are usually are living in environments where they are overprotected, which makes sense, right, with their circumstances. But, so they had to, the chores, they have to do them. So they have to clean, they have to cook, for the rest, set up the table. And, and we're talking like this kid is making dinner for everyone, but then mom at home is peeling the orange for him. So we work a lot on empowerment, and we did like a transfer of information to the families later. I'm like, hey, your kid did dinner yesterday, so if you want to keep peeling the orange, perfect. But so he knows how to. So in that sense, a lot of daily competencies, right? Social skills a lot. It was a group of 15 kids, and we were 8 staff. So it was a good rate. Like it was needed.
That's a big.
Yes,
it's a pretty high ratio if you're looking at. It's a pretty high ratio.
So we work a lot on that, on group development, social skills, and so on. But in an experiential way, in situ, instead of like talking about it in a therapeutic group.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. If you could design a dream campus space, what would be the 3-4 key elements? I will need a lot of money for designing the dream. Okay, so the good elements, that's a very hard question. Definitely partnerships. I think like partnerships are key in the social work that we do. So I will say find someone who has the space or who has the resources and the knowledge to manage the space. Well, in my experience, what I found and my struggle right now is that I am managing directing the organization, but I'm also very interesting, and my focus is on developing the methodology, and I cannot be at both places at the same time in the right way. So now we're trying to transition into, okay, what things can I stop doing that are more like managing the organization, which is essential, so I can put more energy on developing the methodology. So in that sense, one of the elements that I will say is find a partnership that has the skills that you don't need. And we have a big group of psychologists, educators, and so on. But recently, we incorporated one person from marketing, but we need other profiles, like in order to make the organization work, you need someone who takes care of the finance or the structure or human resources. So in that sense, separating roles, I think is a very important element. Another element I will say, this is a very hard question. I will think about it and get back. But another element I will say that is find the right place and time, the location that can really provide you with the resources that you need, but that is also accessible for people. And that really depends on what you like, because maybe I want to be in the middle of the mountains and you have to reach my place by car. Or maybe I want to have a little office in the middle of the city so everyone can come in and say, I want to get out of the city. How do I do this? Right? And B, yeah, really the main thing, being quick with my answer. The main thing is like to make an analysis of what do you have in terms of resources and what do you want, and then look at the difference and see, okay, how can I get this? Can I get it? Can I get this? Okay, so now I need to lower my expectations. I can get this in this time. Perfect, go for it. So this analysis and getting a lot of support in the process, I think, is key. I've had a lot of like mentorship or whatever, tutors from different areas, from business, which I hate, but it is what it is, right? Like you have to learn as well that part. And it's good to hear things from people that you don't like the topics you don't like. I don't want to talk about finance or legal issues, but that's also part of it. So being open to things that you really don't wanna, you are not so interested in, but that they are essential in the development of the work. Okay. How did you guys work around and legal issues while using wilderness areas in national park for your activities? That's another nightmare. As I was saying, with the regulations, in Spain it's really complicated because a lot of regulations are just made for big things, for not so precise reasons. So the restrictions for wild camping, for example, in Spain are really high. You are not supposed to, you cannot go with your tent and camp out in the public land for 3 days. You are only allowed, for example, you have to ask for a permit, but it's a big legal process. You are allowed always to spend the night. Like, oh yeah, I was hiking and it got dark and I set up a tent at dusk and took it out at dawn. So you are allowed to do that, but you are not allowed to set up a camp without asking for permits. So that's how we usually do it. We just spend the nights, just one night in one place, and we put the tent or the tarp at night and take it out in the morning, or we ask for permissions in private lands. So that's what we tend to do to solve this issue. How do you measure the effectiveness of adventure therapy on participants? Good one. The big question. One of the things that we try to do is to promote research, to validate the results. There's already a lot of results in terms of international research, but we are a small organization and we don't have a lot of resources to do this. So what we are doing is gathering information. We usually do like with standardized tests. We do a pre and a post. We choose the test depending on the population that we are working with and the goals. And then we try to partner up with universities so students can do their work, their thesis, analyzing the data. So that's how we are measuring it. We also do sometimes qualitative research, and we tend to do interviews at the end to learn more. But this is usually more like for us to learn. And when we design the goals, we design as well like key, I don't know how you call outcomes, like so things that items that will tell us, okay, this kid was able to ask for help, to set up their tent, to keep their things together, or different, or help someone else. So depending on the goals that we're looking for, we try to create like signs to identify if the goals are being met. What sorts of difficulties can one face on the field? Are there any backup plans? So I'm laughing because on Tuesday we're going on a training in the wilderness therapy training. We're actually doing the first edition in Spanish. So we've been doing 6 editions in English because we know there's already a lot of people in Europe and other countries who are interested. But in Spain, there was not so much interested there. And finally, we decided to do the first edition in Spanish, and we're doing it next week, which is a good sign as well that people are interested. And I'm laughing because we've been going like crazy this week. We have 2 options for the areas where we're going to develop. So we went to explore both areas, and we have like the maps and all the preparation for both places. And we just decided today that we're going to use one of them because the weather is not going to be so good in the other. So, and we're going on the field on Tuesday. So yeah, we have plan A, B, C, and D. And actually last year, we arrived to a new area. We had like a private land, a huge private land to use. And there was like really bad weather condition, that it's like a wind, that it's very crazy. And you sometimes don't know when it happens. It just came. So we have to move the whole program to a whole new different area in the second day of the program. So yes, it's very important to have a lot of plans, and it's actually the key. I think it's one of the most resourceful skills that you need to have working in adventure and wilderness therapy, to be able to accept what comes and to be able to pull up ideas and resources to make something up, and to detach from your idea because you have your plan and you have your maps and you have your areas already picked with a lot of like thought, and then it's like, okay, so now we're changing to this other new area where we only know bits of it. We have to send someone the day before we go to check, right? So it gets a lot of you can find a lot of complications, and also in terms of safety. Safety is the main issue, right? When we talk about safety, we talk emotional safety, but also the physical safety. So it's really important to take that into consideration and never do anything that you think is beyond your abilities to keep the group safe or the person safe. Other kind of difficulties in the field. Well, of course, yeah, the weather, the water. You need to know where you can get the source of water. You can't have any kind of injury, so you need to have like a backup plan. How are you going to take someone out of the field? What if there's a car that cannot get to the person? Okay, do you know how to build like whatever stretchers? Yeah. So there's a lot of like, you know, the first aids that you need to know in order to assist someone in case of an emergency. So there's a lot of things, and we usually go through all of them, or we try to go through all of them before we do the programs. Do people sign up for programs online without face-to-face conversation, or does your experience show there is a need for face-to-face before someone signs up? I guess if you're doing like so we've done some workshops that is like 1 day workshop or half a day, and for this people sign up directly, and we haven't done like a previous interview, maybe a phone call. But for longer programs, we always do a screening process. We always interview with a person, and we think it's both ways. Like we assess whether the participant is a good fit for the program and it's gonna be beneficial, and also the person has the chance to meet us, because I think that's also important. And if you work with youngsters, you also have to do it with the family. So we do the interview with the youngster, and then the interview or the meeting with the families. And I think, yeah, if you're doing like a longer program, a long-term program, or like an intensive, more like residential expedition, this is key. It's important. I think for me, it's important, it's essential, and it's actually one of the whatever the key elements now in adventure therapy, the assessment. Like you are assessing your client's needs and adapting the methodology. This is not a methodology that where the person adapts to it. That could be a summer camp, and there is like a program, and you go to it and you do it. Here is on the other way. I think the intervention has to serve the person. It's also okay, yes, Max. That's so funny. Okay, that someone knows Max as well. Yeah, small world. I will say hi to Max from you, Priyak. Have you had to make adaptations to your program during the pandemic? What does it look like? Yes, during the first months we had to do online. So with the kids so everything was pretty much postponed, and with the kids we continued to do online sessions, which had to be shorter because we have a shorter attention span. And now what we do is more like social distance, the masks. We try to reduce the use of manipulation of elements, and if we do, we wash the hands before and after. So in that sense, we've noticed that it switches a little bit, and things that you don't know, like, oh, maybe the transportation, because now during this time in this province or in this area of Spain, you cannot go in the car if you are not people that live together. So suddenly you cannot use this source of transportation that you've been using. So there's a lot of logistics that are complicating the programs now with the COVID situation. Thankfully, it's an activity that you do outdoors, so there's nothing safer. So in that sense, that's a plus. And I don't know if I miss any. Yeah, no.
Yeah. Thank you, Natalia. That was.
Yeah, thank you for the questions.
Yeah, and I really, I think also enjoy talking to you because it's helpful when in India we're at this sort of right at the beginning and at a very early stage of introducing adventure therapy to the country. And so it's helpful to look at someone who's also just been doing this for a while, but also close enough that you're also figuring some stuff out that we're also grappling with. So that's always been really insightful, because sometimes when you talk to someone who's from the US or Australia where they've been doing it, or parts of Europe where they've been doing it for a much longer time, it's like, okay, where do you begin? So for me, this conversation has been really insightful. And just checking if anyone has any more questions. But otherwise, I thought, Natalia, maybe we could just talk. So Natalia and I are part of the International Adventure Therapy Committee, and we're also kind of leading the training and supervision group. So hopefully we'll also have more opportunities for collaboration and be able to, yeah, so I just wanted to check if you wanted to say a little bit about that, although we're still in the process of working on it.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So yeah, the ATIC, the Adventure Therapy International Committee, we have started, it's been working for a lot of years, and we usually meet every 3 years. We used to meet every 3 years in the conferences, but now we realize, okay, maybe we can do something in between. And I think COVID, the COVID encouraged us to like, hey, maybe we can work online as well. So we created 4 different working groups. One is focused on research, another is focused on the development of the conference, another is focused on the network, I think. And the other one, the last one, the one where Tanya and I are involved, is working on training and supervision. So what we're trying to do is to create opportunities and spaces for professionals in the world to connect and to share experiences, to create a system where we can do some sort of mentorship, or where we can see what resources are available in terms of what trainings are available, or who are providing supervision for what. And this will be open for everyone who wants to join. You don't need to be part as an official. So each country has 2 representatives in the network, in the committee, but you don't need to be a representative of your country to be part of these working groups. And you can contribute or just come and listen and be part of it. So definitely reach out to me or to Tanya if you're interested in learning more or helping out as well to promote. Oh yeah, I think I would love to promote. Actually, one of the things we're trying to promote is this kind of gatherings. Like, okay, like small gatherings to, okay, there's the topic of safety, emotional safety in kids with behavioral issues in the wilderness. So that's the topic, and we just facilitate like a space to share experiences and knowledge about it, for example, right? So if you're interested in this, reach out.
Yeah, thanks. And just to add to someone who asked about, is there a training in India exclusively for adventure therapy? There isn't, but the Association of Experiential Education in the US has put out in just earlier this year a certification for clinical adventure therapists. So where they look at your existing credentials and also then certify you. So that's really a big opportunity for a lot of us, because a lot of us cannot maybe go abroad to do a master's in adventure therapy. But it really breaks down what skills and credentials you need. So you can look that up on the AEE website. And yeah, so just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, and I can leave here some links if you guys wanna stay in contact.
Yeah, that would be good.
Through LinkedIn or Instagram or wherever.
And
okay, and I will put as well for the partner for the ATIC.
Yeah.
Okay. The EEE, the credentials, and it's for me it was really interesting to see how the EEE started to create the credentials now after like 40, 50, 60 years of development of the field. So it's a sign as well, like, okay, well, going little. So in the meantime, we'll make sure that we get credentials for whatever we do in our training and our skills for outdoors, and we'll join them together, which is pretty much what we do in the trainings. And yeah, I don't know if there's anything else.
I think Sarab's asking if there are any trainings planned.
We provide the International Wilderness Therapy Program in training, this one that you saw the video, in September, and there's 2 spots available. And I know there's some online courses with Nick. I don't remember his name, but that he's doing.
That's Nick Magley Haberak, and his website is adventure-therapist.com, I think. That's the one we were in together, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Adventure
I
Therapy.
think it's this. I think it's the correct link.
And also, there's another one that is very much nature-based therapy, which is the Wilderness Therapy Institute. I know they do online trainings. Wilderness Therapy, Somatic Wilderness Therapy Institute with
with Katie Asmus.
Yeah.
There's a training I'm doing from her as well.
And those are really like recommendable links as well. And you guys have the advantage that know English, so that's nice. In Spain, we're a little bit more limited because people manage English as well. So
yeah, great. I'm gonna save these links and then maybe share them along with this video when I upload it. So I'll do that. But yeah, thank you everyone for being here, and thank you so much, Natalia. This conversation was just so rich and full of new insights. So yeah, very grateful that you could make it.
Yeah, me too. Thank you a lot for the welcome and for the questions. I really appreciate it, and really reach out just to ask anything that you have in mind, or share any thoughts, or if I can help in any way to encourage people to go out and do. I will definitely do it. If I can say something, I like to wrap up. Just go and do and try. Be careful. Do it in the way that you can do it, being mindful and being intentional, and always providing a safe intervention. But if you're seeing a client, go to the park and just try and see how it goes. Like, let's go to do this session outdoors. Or if you have a small group of colleagues, like go out and try something with them. Like, okay, let's do this experiential activity. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.